Welcome to the pre-match warm-up for the 2021 annual general meeting. Thanks everyone who's joined us online, and just to reinforce our earlier Indigenous acknowledgement, it's so special as we are all such great lovers of story to be on this land that is owned by the oldest living storytellers in the world. I'm Karina Kilmore, a debut crime author and a convener for Sisters in Crime Australia. And with me is Emma Viskic, who literally needs no introduction. Emma, not only are you so well known all over Sisters in Crime through our Sisters in Crime members, but also much more widely throughout Australia and the whole crime reading world. Give us a rundown on your books, maybe in order of publication, just to remind everyone how fabulous you are. And then let's have a chat about Sisters in Crime and what it's meant to you to be a member.
I'm glad you got my little bribery there. I thought it might arrive.
It did, thank you.
So my debut novel, Resurrection Bay, was published, 6 years ago now, actually. It feels like only a couple of years ago. 2015, Resurrection Bay was published. And I published then 2 years after that, And Fire Came Down, which was the sequel. And then Darkness for Light, just over a year ago. And they're all part of the Caleb Zelic series, featuring poor old Caleb, who I put through his paces, who is a fraud investigator or a PI, Melbourne-based, Victoria regional town-based, and he happens to be profoundly deaf. And I'm currently working on the fourth and final in this Caleb series, called Those Who Perished, which will be out early next year.
Wow, have we got a scoop? What do you mean when you say this Caleb series?
Well, I've always thought I wanted to write a really short series because a lot happens to the characters and the characters are changing. There are consequences for things that happen. So he's not a Jack Reacher sort of character who has to be the same each book. It is almost the opposite of a Jack Reacher character, in that Caleb and the people around Caleb have to change a lot. So I always knew I wanted to write quite a short series so that would happen. But over the last few years I've been thinking, but I can imagine writing some other books and then coming back to Caleb with a jump in time. So he's moved on, I've moved on. I've got lots of ideas for it. Whether I do it or not, I don't know, but I'm actually quite keen to. So it'll be interesting to see where I go with that.
Yeah, Caleb has changed a lot just through the books that I've read, through the books that you've written so far, hasn't he? He's evolved already.
Yeah, I mean, he likes to think he's evolved.
Well, in his special Caleb way.
Yeah, and I think Kat, his on again, off again wife, no spoilers, would agree that he's changed, and perhaps he hasn't changed quite as much as he should have, but he's definitely trying, shall we say? Yeah.
Okay, that sounds great. Very exciting for you ahead then. So let's talk about Sisters in Crime. What has it meant to you to be a member of Sisters in Crime?
Actually, a huge amount, really. There's the really obvious practical side, which was Resurrection Bay won 3 Davitt Awards.
I think that's a record, Emma.
It definitely was at the time, and I got to say it was a record for me. It's just going up there. How many times can one person cry on stage in a night? Well, quite a few times, it turns out. And that for me as a writer was this. It was like it gave me permission to write the sort of books I wanted to write. Yeah. Because I think the whole series it's a little bit unusual. They're not weird books, they're not genre bending, but I definitely wrote Resurrection Bay to be the sort of book that I wanted to write, the sort of book that I wanted to read. So it doesn't quite fit, is it plot driven, is it character driven? Well, sort of both. So it was a little bit hard to explain to, say, publishers and things. So the fact that it was warmly received was obviously huge for me.
Yeah.
But more than that, winning the Davitts and the Ned Kelly for Resurrection Bay actually got me overseas publication.
Yeah.
It happened almost immediately. I won the awards, and suddenly there was international recognition. So that on a practical level is huge. But more than that, I think before I was published, it was seeing women writing crime.
Yeah.
And I've always read crime. I've read everything ever since I was young, and crime has always been a mainstay. Actually, I started reading way too young. When I look back now, I don't know what my parents were thinking, but it's been there. But so few of the writers were women. I mean, there's the obvious ones. There was Nia Martin, there was Agatha Christie, but then there's this huge gap. And until you've got people like Sarah Paretsky and Janet Ivanovic and people like that, but not as many female writers. Yes, you got Morel Day, Dorothy Porter, but I didn't know about them until much later.
Yeah.
So with Sisters in Crime, it was suddenly this whole world of, wow, look at all these writers. There's writers in the past, there's writers that are doing it now, and there were writers like me who are trying to become published authors. And so it just made it feel possible, really.
Yeah.
And it seems ridiculous. Now you look at the bookstores and there's so many female crime writers. You think, how could that be? But 15 years ago, nowhere near. They were the real, I think, well, they were special. That one person was special to get there. It didn't really feel like it was something that you could just do.
Yeah,
I mean,
they were the exception, weren't they?
That's right. Yeah. Now I think there is such a huge, strong body of female crime writers that I think for people coming up now, it must be much easier to at least be able to imagine yourself be doing that.
Yeah.
As much as any writer imagines themselves, being published. I don't know. It's a weird thing to imagine, really. Even once you've been published, it's that. Really? Someone published me? But when you're not seeing other people doing it, it's very hard to imagine.
Yeah, no. And I think also I loved when I first came across Sisters in Crime, I loved that there's so many women in the room, in the author panels, and everyone was friendly and welcoming. And that's such a rare event to have all women writers on a panel. I've never seen that anywhere else. No, Sisters in Crime do that so well.
Yeah, it is pretty rare, even now. And I think also before I was published, the very first Sisters in Crime event I went to in South Melbourne, I did something so unlike me. I turned up by myself with no wingman, no wingwoman. Yes. I just walked in, and that, I'm going to tell you, a little bit of vomit comes into my throat even thinking about it now. I can't believe I did it. But I was seriously into my writing. I've always written, but I'd been writing seriously for a few years, and I thought, I've got to do it. I've got to go to Sisters in Crime. And I walked into the room and I said, oh my God, what am I going to do? But it had a good vibe.
Yeah.
And I actually just went up to a couple of people and I said, you just have to look after me. I've got no idea who anyone is and what to do. And I was just instantly, welcomed and accepted, and felt very comfortable straight away.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably the first writing event I'd ever been to that I'd talked to anyone.
Wow.
So that was a pretty positive experience. I mean, it was an incredibly positive experience.
That's right. It's funny, isn't it? Because we go along to these events and everyone sits in rows and chairs and nobody actually talks to each other. So it's great to have the camaraderie that we do at a Sisters event. Also, it's great to, to nurture young emerging writers too. And on that, I'll just mention that it's our 30th anniversary of the Scarlet Stilettos this year, our annual short story competition. Emma, what's your track record with short story writing?
I resisted writing short stories for the longest time. Anything I went to, everyone would say, you should write short stories. It's such a good training ground, and it's really good to get publishers interested. And I just went, no, I want to write books. And then one day I went, oh, come on, just try it. And I discovered two things. I discovered it made me a far, far, far better writer. I mean, I'm a relatively sparse writer. I thought that I was pretty sparse back then. Oh, no, too many characters, too many words, just too much everything. So that happened. But I guess there's something beautiful about being able to finish something, because it takes a long time to do a book. But I managed to, I think my career turned on this, actually. I got an honourable mention in the Scarlet Stiletto.
Oh.
And I won the Ned. Yeah, I know, Scarlet Stiletto. It made a huge difference.
Yeah.
And then I won the Ned Kelly and the Thunderbolt prize, the short story prizes. And then Echo Publishing contacted me and said, would you like to send us your manuscript? So because of those short story prizes, and it all started with the Scarlet Stiletto, it gave me the confidence as well, but it got publishing interest. So it makes a huge difference, I think. Yeah.
Competitions are a great way to get noticed by the industry, whether it's an agent or a publisher.
Absolutely.
Speaking of awards, we're going to kickstart the awards for this year in a couple of days. We're having a launch party and celebrity reading of some of the recent winning stories. That's on June the 4th at the Athenaeum Library in the Melbourne CBD. So looking forward to as many members and friends who can come along to launch the 30th year. And just a bit of advance warning, get your frocks ready. We're also planning a 30th birthday party after the Scarlet Stiletto presentations this year, later in the year. So the year, oh my God, this year has just, more than a year since we've had an AGM. Because of COVID, everything's been delayed. But how did COVID impact you as a writer, Emma, or your family, or your life,
I'm incredibly lucky, and that, we're all safe still. So, I mean, that as a start, I really struggled, I've got to say. I'm incredibly easily distracted. I can imagine all sorts of bad experiences. So I found it hard not to have quiet space. I found my brain very busy. I ended up writing an incredibly gothic novel, complete with dead crows, spooky men in towers, all sorts of things. When actually I should have been writing Caleb 4. But we've clawed it back now. It's all fine. But there was a little time there when I had to actually learn how to write like Emma Viskic again instead of Emma Shelley. So it was quite the experience, I've got to say. But I've got to say, even though it was hard to be writing through it, it was also an incredible blessing to be writing through it as well. Yeah. Because for hours and hours of the day, once I could get into my writing, I could be in that world, spooky men in towels and dead crows and all. So it was. There were pluses, definite pluses.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, as an organisation, sisters we had to be really nimble. We lost our audience and our income source from our live events. But I'd have to say we managed really well. We switched to Zoom for our author panels and even introduced a new online event, Murder Mondays. I think we thought it was really important to stay connected. But also we offered these events free too, because everyone was doing it tough. A lot of our members lost their jobs or had reduced hours. So instead of members coming to us, we decided we'd come to them in their own homes for free.
Yeah, and you pivoted really quickly.
It was
almost instant. Yeah. I think of the events I had last year, I'd say 50% of them cancelled straight away.
Yeah.
And 50% managed to do online things. And I think it was very hard for the organisers. I think it was a lot of work. Yeah. But it really opened things out to a broader audience.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that side of things has been incredibly positive.
Hasn't it?
So
I'm hoping we can
keep some of it. It's that side of it's been great. Although I do really want to get back to South Melbourne and have food and a bit of champagne and see people in real life. That'd be nice as well.
Well, you haven't got long to wait, because our first real life event is on July 23, I think it is, back at the Rising Sun in South Melbourne. Emma, thank you very much for being with us today, warming up our AGM audience. And it's so lovely to see you. Hope to see you in person very soon.
Very, very soon. With champagne in my hand, clinking to you all.
Yeah. So thanks, everyone. Back to the conveners for the AGM.